Hello and welcome everybody back to our new video part 2, which is characteristics of living organism and cell organization, specialized cell part 2. Today we are going to tackle animal cell, plant cell, and all of each of the specialized cell present in our syllabus. So let us start by the animal cell. Well, the animal cell consists of organelles. We are going to tackle each and every organelle in the animal cell. First of all, mitochondria. Well, mitochondria, you can identify it by these spiral shaped. So basically, you can identify a mitochondria by this what? By this pattern. So basically, when you see a mitochondria, remember that mitochondria, it is the site of aerobic respiration to release energy. And when we say aerobic respiration, we mean that respiration involves oxygen. So it is a chemical reaction inside the cell involving oxygen breaking down the food molecules to release energy. Release it in a form that we can use in our body, so that we can use it to walk, to talk, to do multiple purposes in our daily life. Okay. So basically, a mitochondria, it is the powerhouse of the cell. It provides the cell with each and every energy it requires for other organelles and for other parts of our body to function, for the brain to function, for the heart to function, for each and every part of our body to function. Moving on to the cytoplasm. Cytoplasm, you can identify it by this like jelly structure liquid. Okay, so cytoplasm, it's a site of chemical metabolic reactions. It is a place where all of the chemical metabolic reaction occurs. Now, this was about cytoplasm and mitochondria. Now moving on to the vesicle. So the vesicle, it is an irregular shaped object, okay? It transports material around and out of the cell. So this vesicle basically can move out of the cell by exocytosis and enter into the cell by endocytosis, and these terms you're gonna need in your AS level, but not now. But basically, what is a vesicle? Like, a vesicle can contain some sub-products or food products which are so tiny and so small to see, and these sub-products, so this vesicle will move out of the cell, or the vesicle can enter the cell. Okay, so basically the vesicle is used as a transport. Now, as a transport mechanism, transporting like objects or organisms or organelles from one part to another part. Now for the cell membrane, it's a partially permeable membrane. It's made from fats and proteins. It controls movement of substances in and out, and it keeps content inside. So this cell membrane prevents the content of the cell from leaking out of the cell. So basically, the cell membrane, it's a wall. And that wall prevents all of the population of organelles inside the cell from leaking out, and it controls movement of substances in and out. So like oxygen, if it want to enter into the cell of the animal cell, okay, so it has to pass first through the cell membrane, and that if oxygen is very small, it will the cell membrane will allow the oxygen molecules to enter into the mitochondria by very easy way. Now for the nucleus. It contains what? It contains genetic material, which is the DNA. It controls cell activities and cell division. It controls what? It controls all of the cell activities and cell division, okay? So this is the nucleus. It contains your DNA, and your DNA is stored inside the nucleus. And remember this information with me, because it really comes in paper 4 and paper 2 question. Endoplasmic reticulum, or the ribosomes. So basically, the endoplasmic reticulum, it contains the ribosomes, and these ribosomes are placed and found and present on what? On the endoplasmic reticulum. And when I say ribosomes, well, ribosomes, these are small tiny circles which are present in the cell, and they are mostly dark, and we are going to see the animal cell under the microscope after this slide. So the ribosome, it is the site of protein synthesis. Ribosomes are attached onto the endoplasmic reticulum. So basically, endoplasmic reticulum is this blue object here, and the ribosomes are these small tiny circles which are attached to it. So when I say protein synthesis is the production of protein, endoplasmic reticulum or the ribosomes, it is the site where the proteins are produced. Okay. Now moving on to the next slide for the animal cell, but under the microscope. And all of these terms and all of these organelles we had explained in the previous slide, so just don't worry about them. As you can see under the microscope, the nucleus is present in here, and the mitochondria, as you can see, these small little squirky patterns, and cytoplasm is this jelly blank liquid. Vesicle, it is irregular object or circular shaped object. It transport material around and out of the cell, so basically can move it out of the cell like this. Cell membrane, remember it as a wall that prevent the contents of the cell from leaking out and from escaping out of the cell. Okay, now cell membrane, I just need to like stress on this point that the cell membrane has another friend which is known as a cell wall, but in plant cells but not in animal cell. Remember this. Nucleus, it contains genetic material, and we had mentioned this before. Now for the plant cell, so the plant cell, we have a structure and organelles. We have a microscopic view of the plant cell, and we have a 2D structure of the plant cell. But all of the terms are the same. All of the terms are the same exactly. Mitochondria having the same definition in both. Just for you guys to understand the microscopic view and a 2D structure of the plant cell. Now cell membrane, it's a partially permeable membrane made from fats and proteins, and the same definition as that of an animal cell. Mitochondria, same definition. Cytoplasm, same definition. But we have 3 extra organelles which weren't present in the animal cell. And first of all is a cell wall, which I told you that it's a friend of what, of the cell membrane. So basically the cell wall in here, it's made from cellulose, and cellulose, it's a substance which allow the cell wall to be turgid, to be rigid, to be strong and non-bursting. Okay, it gives strength and support. And then second organelle is a large permanent vacuole. It contains a sap solution, water with dissolved salts and sugars, and it keeps the cells turgid. So basically remember that you have a circle, and that circle has containing a sac, and that sac is full of water. So basically when you are increasing the water inside that sac will widen, causing the circle to become bigger and bigger and bigger and more stronger and more turgid, and in the same way without bursting. Where plant cells does not burst due to an increase in water because it has a turgid cell wall. Okay, this is the purpose of a large permanent vacuole. It contains all of the water that the plant is gaining in. So basically if you have a plant and you are pouring water into this plant, the plant will absorb the water, and that water will move into the vacuole being stored in there to allow the plant to become turgid. Now for the chloroplast, it is made from chlorophyll. Okay, it is made from what? It is made from chlorophyll. It is made from chlorophyll. And this gives strength and support. It prevents the cell from bursting and helps the cell keeps its shape and stay turgid. Well, that definition is not for the chloroplast. That definition is basically for the cell wall. But let me tell you what is the main purpose of the chloroplast. Can you look in here in this part, please? The chloroplast, it contains chlorophyll. It absorbs light energy to carry out photosynthesis. So chloroplast, it contains chlorophyll, and chlorophyll, it's a green substance which allows the plant to absorb energy from the sunlight. The sun rays will hit the plant, and the plant will absorb energy from the sun to create out photosynthesis and to produce its own food and subproducts. Okay, now for the nucleus. The nucleus, it contains genetic material, the same definition as the microscopic view, nothing different from it at all. So basically, for us to understand this question, for this slide, we need to understand each and every organelle. For each and every cell, memorize it exactly as it is mentioned in the slide here, and you will get your full marks, because basically these definitions are from the marking scheme directly to you guys. Now moving on to the next slide, we have a comparison of animal and plant cells. We need to compare the animal and plant cells and know what are the differences, what is the common, and what is the features of both. Now, features of animal cells are, first of all, we have here that we don't have cell wall, we don't have a chloroplast, we have no large vacuole, and we have a temporary vacuole, which are the small vesicles. So these small vesicles, we can say on them that they are temporary vacuoles, but not compared to that large permanent vacuole. And this irregular in shape. The animal cell, it's always irregular in shape, sometimes circular, sometimes oval, but it does not have a structured or rigid format. Okay, compared to the plant cell, which is always rectangular in shape. Features of plant cells: it has a cell wall made from cellulose, it has chloroplast, which we told that it contains the chlorophyll that absorbs the light energy to carry out photosynthesis, and we told also that it has a regular shape. which is always a rectangular shape. Common features of both cells: basically both have cell membrane, both have cytoplasm, both contains same cell organelles which are nucleus, ribosomes, mitochondria, endoplasmic reticulum. And when there is a difference between mitochondrion and mitochondrion it's one mitochondria only, but mitochondria it is many mitochondria, it's a plural form of mitochondrion. Okay, now moving on to the next slide. Bacterial cell, it's another cell. It's not a specialized cell though, but it's another cell like bacterial cell. We have animal cell, we have plant cell. It's one of the kingdoms. So bacterial cell structure and organelles. Now for the cell wall, it's made from a substance known as peptidoglycan. Remember this. A cell wall is made from what? From peptidoglycan and not cellulose. Don't mix it up, because cellulose is basically is found in the cell wall of plants but not in the cell wall of bacteria. Cytoplasm, it's a site of reaction of metabolic activity. And now we have the cell membrane which is present in there, and a circular DNA. And we have also the plasmids, and these plasmids are used in genetically engineered organisms. And that will be the last lesson, which is the 21st lesson of our syllabus, and that will be explained. And ribosomes, it's used for protein synthesis. And flagellum, singular, or flagella plural. So there is always a plural and a singular for flagellum, and you need to remember it because sometimes you get asked in paper 4 question papers. Okay, now lack of mitochondria and chloroplast. So these are all of the organelles. You just need to memorize them. You need to memorize the organelles, the function of the organelles, the shape, and you may be asked to draw them. So basically you need to know each and everything in this slide, and these information are basically extracted from the marking scheme to you guys, so you don't worry about any information in here. Cell membrane, it's a partially permeable membrane. It's made from fats and proteins. It controls movement. So the same definition. Nucleus, it's also single circular chromosome that float freely in the cytoplasm. But wait a minute, bacteria does not have a nucleus. It has a circular DNA, also can be referred to as nucleoid, but not nucleus. Nucleus is only present in animal cell and plant cell because they are eukaryotic organisms. They are eukaryotic. But bacterial cell is basically prokaryotic. And when I say prokaryotic, it does not have nucleus. Nucleus does not exist. We can say on it a circular DNA. So basically you can see this circular DNA, or called a nucleoid. Okay. Now flagellum. Flagellum is used for the cell membrane, is used for the bacterial cell to swim in a solution, in a medium, in a liquid, to move from one place to another place, because basically a bacterial cell, it's a unicellular cell, so it is only alone. It does not form like a big part of a human body. No, it's only a unicellular, so it's basically only one cell, so it needs a flagellum to move from one part to another. Lack mitochondria and chloroplast. It does not have mitochondria and it does not have chloroplast. It lacks each and every organelle you can imagine. It does not have nucleus, no mitochondria, no chloroplast. And for the cytoplasm, it is a site of metabolic reaction, and it contains ribosomes. So these small tiny dots you can see there, these are ribosomes. These are what? These are ribosomes. And that was all about the bacterial cell and how the bacterial cell can function. Okay, using these organelles, we have the microscopic view and we have the 2D view, which also come in some exam papers. Okay, now moving on to the specialized cell. So starting with a red blood cell, and one of these specialized cell is the red blood cell. And so let us start. The function of the red blood cell is transporting oxygen to all body cells, from the neurons, from the brain, from each and every part of our body. We are transporting oxygen to each and every part of our body, to our skin, to our eyes, to our nose, to each and every part. So basically the red blood cell need to have some adaptation or some features which will help it to carry out its function more and much effectively. And the first one is biconcave shape. And when I say biconcave shape, is that shape you are seeing in that circle lasered by the red laser, to provide a larger surface area for faster gas exchange. So when I'm having the biconcave shape, and this shape, this circular shape which is oval in both ends, It is used to provide a larger surface area for a faster gas exchange. Now, it also does not have any cell organelles. So this is like a cell which have a hole inside it that is like empty, totally empty. It does not have any cell organelles, no mitochondria, no nucleus, nothing. It's very empty. This is used to provide more space for more hemoglobin to transport more oxygen. And hemoglobin is a substance which is contained in our blood. It is used to transport oxygen and make the blood more rich in what? More rich in oxygen. So basically it's present inside there. Now for the 3, it is almost same size as a capillary. The red blood cell, it has almost same size as a capillary, so that it can flow and squeeze in the blood capillaries very easily and much more effectively. And the reason that it has almost same size as a capillary, that it can move slowly for efficient gas exchange. So basically, as you can see in this drawing, that the red blood cell is moving out the oxygen out of there and is entering out carbon dioxide. So it is transporting. So red blood cell is moving in the blood capillaries, moving out its oxygen content to the tissues and to the cells nearby. Now, why it is flexible? Basically, it's flexible because for one reason, to squeeze itself through the tiniest capillary. It needs to squeeze itself through the tiniest capillary, so that if each and any capillary can have these bumps like shape, if any capillary have bumps like shape, the red blood cell can move and squeeze in very easily and very like effectively without damaging the red blood cell itself. Now the next specialized cell we have, which is the ciliated epithelial cells. So this is known as the lung cleaning mechanism. I'm cleaning our throat from any infection or any dust or any bacteria that is present or trapped inside our throat. And we use these ciliated epithelial cells, which are basically found inside the ribs of our body or in the larynx part, okay, and it is used to move out bacteria into our stomach. First of all, we have goblet cells, and these goblet cells, as you can see them here, they produce mucus, and that mucus spreads to each and every part of our lungs, in each and every part of our throat. And the order for this mucus is to trap the bacteria. So mucus, as you can see, this jelly-like blue liquid, it traps dust and it traps bacteria. So the sticky mucus traps particles, which you can see here. Mucus traps dust and bacteria. Mucus is sticky, so it traps dust and bacteria. For us to trap dust and bacteria is only for one purpose: to excrete that dust and to excrete that bacteria out of our larynx and out of our throat and out of our lungs into our stomach to be killed by the acid in the stomach. Now let us continue. The cilia beat to move the mucus. So basically the cilia are present in there, these tiny hair-like structures known as the ciliated epithelial cells. These cells are the ones that are responsible for moving the mucus out of our lungs back to the throat part, so it will be swallowed. And this red arrow shows you how the mucus is swallowed from our lungs, trapping the dust and bacteria that we breathe in during our day. During our day, we normally breathe like dust, smoke from cars, so these are all trapped in our larynx and is moved by the mucus throughout our food pipe to the stomach, where these are all killed by the acid killed by the stomach acid inside the stomach. Okay, so back to the throat and to be swallowed and killed by the acid in the stomach. Now moving on to the next specialized cell, which is a sperm cell, and that sperm cell is only found in the males. So structure and function of a human sperm cell. First of all, you can see this is structure of a sperm cell. First, we have an acrosome, and that acrosome is that upper layer. See that upper layer there. This front part of the sperm cell is what in the yellow color part, it is the acrosome. The acrosome basically it secretes digestive enzyme, to dissolve jelly-like layer or material around the egg to help penetrate the egg. Now for that sperm cell to enter and penetrate the egg cell, it need to have some enzymes or digestive enzyme to dissolve a jelly-like layer material around the egg, so that the sperm cell can penetrate the egg and deliver the sperm cells inside that egg cell, forming a zygote. Okay, Now, ahead, the head part of the sperm cell. The head part of the sperm cell, it contains the nucleus, and you can see that nucleus is the purple circle present in that spot. It contains the nucleus with the genetic material, and the middle part present in the middle of the sperm cell. It is basically, it's full of many mitochondria. It is a site of aerobic respiration to release energy for movement to fertilize the egg. So that middle part contains many mitochondria to carry out aerobic respiration to release energy. So that energy is used to move the flagellum or the tail part of the sperm cell for mobilization, so that it can move from one part to another, so that it can move to fertilize one egg or another millions of billions of eggs. Okay, so basically this was all about the sperm cell. So as you can see an example here, a live example where an acrosome secretes enzyme, and these are the enzymes being secreted by that acrosome to penetrate and enter into the egg cell, and the flagellum or the tail part is present here for movement of sperm to fertilize the egg. Now moving on to the next specialized cell, which is the egg cell. Okay, so first in egg cell we have a jelly coat, and that jelly coat is basically containing the protection, and it contains all of the nutrients for that the egg will need during the development stage in the fetus. Okay, to develop for us a fetus inside the ovaries. Now for the cell membrane, it is the like just wall-like structure to prevent the cell contents from leaking out, and of course it contains nucleus, it contains cytoplasm, and as well it contains mitochondrion for the cell to produce energy for development, for growth, for moving, because that egg cell that you can see in this presentation, in this slide, will grow into embryo, and that embryo is a ball of cells. Okay, so this cytoplasm, the cytoplasm that you can see in here, it contains food storage for what? For early development of the embryo or ball of cells. Okay, so the cytoplasm contains a food storage in the cytoplasm. Now moving on to the comparison between egg cell and sperm cells. So basically sperm cells, they are smaller in size, while egg cell is larger in size, and sperm cell has acrosome but egg cell has no acrosome. Sperm cell has flagellum but egg cell has no flagellum. For the cytoplasm content, the sperm cell here does not have a food storage, and it only have nucleus and acrosome, a flagellum only. But for the egg cell, it has a cytoplasm with large food storage, which is known as the yolk, and that large food storage is required for what? Is required for the egg cell to develop itself, to grow itself, to develop into embryo or ball of cells. Now it is also motile. The sperm cells are motile. They are mobile. They can move from one place in a medium to another place in another medium or in the same medium. But the egg cell, it is non-motile. It is moved by the action of the cilia in the ovary. Okay, it's moved by the action in the cilia in the ovary, and that you will learn in the reproduction lesson, which is lesson I think number 17 or 12, I guess. So, and quantity or production of quantity, each and every day from the sperm cell there are millions of sperm cells being produced. Many sperm cells are produced, but for the egg cell it is only one egg per month. Typically it's only one egg per month. In the whole month only one egg is released in the female body. For the sperm cell, it is produced from the testis, and as you can see, these are the testes, and in the egg cell, it is produced by the ovaries, and these are the ovaries. Now moving on to the next part, or the next specialized cell for plant cells. Now we had only covered a while ago specialized cells for animal cells, but there are also specialized cells for plant cells. Now moving on to palisade mesophyll layer, or the palisade mesophyll cells. It's packed with chloroplast. Okay, it contains chloroplast, and these chloroplasts are used to carry out photosynthesis, as I mentioned in the first of the video. And it contains chlorophyll, of course, absorbs light energy, and that light energy is used to carry out photosynthesis by taking in carbon dioxide and taking in water and releasing oxygen and releasing glucose, which is the food that the plant is required to store it or even to transport it to other parts of the plant. So for the palisade mesophyll layer we have many parts. First of all, we have the upper epidermis, we have the palisade mesophyll layer, we have the spongy mesophyll layer, we have a vascular bundle which consists of what? Which consists of the xylem and phloem. we have lower epidermis, which, as you can see, this part, this rectangular like part, this is the lower epidermis. This is the lower epidermis, and we have the stomata, which is the tiny opening or space inside these lower epidermis. Okay, and we have the guard cells. The guard cells, they control the opening and closing of the stomata. So basically, when the stomata wants to close, these guard cells will become turgid, they will increase in size, and then they will close the stomata. And then we have the lower epidermis. Okay, and that was all about the palisade mesophyll cells. Now for the root hair cell. Basically, root hair cell is very easy. Root hair cell is basically about what? About cytoplasmic extension. Root hair cell is found in the roots of the plant. When you just extract a root, in this root there are very tiny microscopic cells which are known as root hair cells, and these root hair cells has features that it can adapt and transport much and more water for the plant cell to survive. So first thing here, we have cytoplasmic extension, or we can say it that it increases surface area for the maximum absorption. So the cytoplasm, it's not only present in this part, but it's also extending. It's also having an extension to this part. So basically, when you just understood the idea of it being present, of a cytoplasm being moving, the cytoplasm is moving from the main rectangular part of the cell to another tiny part. So why it's doing like this? It is doing like this to increase surface area, so larger surface area, so more space for more water to diffuse into the root hair cells and into the plant. Second of all, it have a thin wall. Imagine with me if I am having here this wall, okay, and this wall I need to pass water through it. Do you think that if I'm having that wall very thick, does the water molecule can easily pass? No, the water molecule will not pass even. But if I'm having it very tiny and very thin, to the extent that air can pass through it, okay, so basically this allow more water molecule to pass through this thin cell wall, and more water will reach the plant. So another adaptation edge is thin cell wall, and it has a shorter diffusion distance, so uptake of mineral ions will be much more easier. Another also adaptation, it has a large number of mitochondria. Has a large number of what? It has a large number of mitochondria. So the large number of mitochondria helps me in providing me with more energy by aerobic respiration, right? So providing me with more energy, I will have more energy to allow active transport to occur, which is a process that will be explained in next chapter, and to provide me energy for each and every processes inside the plant. I just want you guys in this video to understand the organelles, to understand how they function together to produce a specialized cell that is mainly present inside a plant. Now, the fourth adaptation, it's concentrated sap vacuole, and it is by osmosis. And osmosis is actually passive transport. It's a passive what? Passive transport. It allows water absorption by osmosis through a partially permeable membrane. And for me to have a concentrated sap vacuole, meaning that I have a lower water potential inside the cell, right? So osmosis in its role, which will be explained in the next chapter, will allow water to move into the cell or into the specialized root hair cell. So easily water will move by osmosis into the cell from a higher water potential, which contains less mineral ions, less sugars, and less other ions, and it will move into the plant root hair cell for the plant to gain much more water. Now for the last and final specialized plant cell, which is the xylem vessel. For here, the xylem vessel, it's an adapted system for transport and support. It transports water and it supports the plant from falling and giving it the support it requires. So what is the function of a xylem? It transports water and minerals and gives support to the plant. First adaptation, it has dead cells and hollow lumen. dead cells and whole lumen. So basically no cytoplasm, no nucleus, and no organelles. You remember me with someone that I had in mind, which is a bacterial cell, but the bacterial cell had actually organelle, which was only the ribosomes, but it did not had what it did not had nucleus. So link this with this. But basically a xylem vessel, it's like an empty tube. Just get a straw from the kitchen and just look into it, and that straw is basically the xylem vessel. It's empty. It only have a space for a water molecule to pass through it. It also has lignified walls, and these lignified walls contains lignin, and it has a primary cell wall, and it contains a waterproof substance. So what is lignin? Lignin, it's a waterproof substance present in the walls of the xylem vessel to prevent the leakage of water, to prevent the water from leaking out of the xylem vessels out to the plant, okay, out of the plant to the surrounding air and these things. Adaptation 5, which is the bits. And when I say bits, they are non-lignified parts of the wall, because remember, just 3 seconds ago I told you that the wall of the xylem vessel is lignified, but in this way, for the bits to occur, these are non-lignified parts. As you can see, these small tiny circles inside the xylem vessel, these allow lateral movement of water and minerals. When I say lateral, it's like this is the lateral movement of water. As you can see, the arrows high here are illustrating what I mean by lateral movement of water. You will tell me now, but here the water is moving out of the xylem vessels. No, it's not moving out of the xylem vessel, it's moving to other parts of the cell, because xylem vessel, it's one of the parts which are providing water. It's providing water for each and every part of the plant. So basically these bits allow lateral movement of water so that the water can reach to all parts of the plant. Now adaptation 2, no end walls. And when I say end walls, I just want you to remember this. If I'm having a circle and for example, this black is the end wall, do you think that water will flow as smooth as the end wall is not present? Of course, when the end wall is not present, the water will flow more smoothly. The water will flow more efficiently, and it will not prevent it from not moving efficiently. So basically, when I say no end walls, when I say no end walls, it means that it has free continuous water flow. A continuous water column is being developed, so more water can flow inside the xylem vessel and outside of the xylem vessel very smoothly and very easily. This was all about the xylem vessel. I know that the xylem vessel contains a lot of characteristics, but just for you to memorize them, just you need to imagine it by each and every step in this diagram. And well, that was all about the specialized cell, and it was all about part 2 for the specialized cells. Thanks for watching, and see you in another video. Bye bye.